What's going on, everyone? It's your friendly neighbourhood Gromit back again, and welcome to the Vinyl Record Haul for March 2024. Now, despite the fact I haven't made any videos throughout this month, I've been busy on my university graduate film. I'm midway through shooting at the moment, and in fact for this video today I thought I'd spice things up and use the actual movie camera that we're shooting the movie on with. So quality should look a bit better today, should look just all around nice and, you know, high production value just for this video. I don't know how long I'm going to need this camera for, but don't expect this kind of quality every week. Maybe one day though, when I get a bit more cash in my hands, I'll grab a camera like this and we can really enjoy the quality of my ugly face. But there's been a lot of new records in the collection this month anyhow, and the big one actually is the fact that I have indeed acquired a new turntable. It's the Technica LP5. Now, I know that there is a LP5X or Max or something like that which came out recently, but I picked up this turntable for 150 quid, and it's the old variant, but it still looks beautiful. It plays my records better than any turntable I've had before, and as I'm not exactly, you know, like a loaded person, I don't have tons of cash on hand, you know, to have a turntable like this, it's just been a dream. It's been absolutely awesome playing my records on this turntable. But apart from that, there's still lots of new records in my collection, and a few from last time that I did not show, which I forgot to show, to be completely honest. One of them, a Led Zeppelin album. Don't know how on earth I forgot to show that. But let's have a look at what I've picked up this month. So I thought before we move on to the LPs today, there is some singles that I've picked up recently, and I love singles, man. They get a hard time these days. I think most people prefer to just buy LPs, but you need to realise that back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of folk relied on singles, because LPs, believe it or not, were expensive back then as well. But singles were the way for people to get a song that they like and just play it for a cheap, you know, a cheap price. And many of the times, a lot of the greatest songs of that era are singles, and they were only released on singles, not albums. But I've got a few singles I've picked up recently. Here is a awesome Monkees number, Valerie. This is, you know, the Monkees at their peak. Valerie, absolutely awesome riff in that song, like genuinely, like outstanding. And on the back, we've got a how do you say that? Tapioca Tundra, whatever. It's a Nesmith number, and that just symbolises a great Monkey single when you have that Michael Nesmith number on the back, on the B side. And this is a great song as well, even if I can't pronounce the name that well. Everyone knows that I'm garbage at names, but picked this up at a charity shop for 50p. It seems that you find Monkey singles quite a lot in charity shops. They're kind of the only good 60s pop band that a lot of these charity shops, if they get in, won't massively upscale their prices. Next up, here is a bit of Budgie, Burke Shelley, rest in peace. It's been a few years since he passed now, but this is Whiskey River, and on the back is their absolutely brilliant song Guts. And this is the song that people first heard of Budgie. It's the first track on their first album, and it is a masterpiece song. I love Budgie. Getting some new Budgie into the collection, which will be in my next record haul video, because those records are still coming in the mail. But Whiskey River and Guts. Whiskey River is the first song off their second album, I believe. Guts there. Absolutely sensational. Proto-metal, hard rock. I wouldn't really call this metal, it's more proggy than metal, but it's just hard and just amazing. So yeah. Then I picked up this is I don't know if this is a single or an EP technically. This is the single for Voodoo Child. It's got Voodoo Child and then Hey Joe in All Along the Watchtower on side 2. And I picked this up for £15. I had some spare money and I was in the Vinyl Cafe in Carlisle, and I saw this on one of the stands and I was like, that looks pretty cool, I'll pick it up. And it's cool to have this in the collection. Jimi Hendrix original singles. This came out in 1970, I believe. And even on the back, if I get it out, it's on the track records. You can see there, 6 shillings recommended retail price. So, yeah. And then finally, for the singles I want to show, we've got a bit of Syd Barrett. Picked up a copy of CMLE Play, and of course, Scarecrow is on the back. When you find original, you know, Columbia era Pink Floyd for cheap, this was about £5. You gotta pick it up. Everyone knows I love the Syd Barrett shit. People often are like, oh, well, they imagine what would have happened if Syd Barrett didn't go cuckoo and stayed on in Pink Floyd. They would have been awful. But no, man, I think they would have been just as good of a band if Syd Barrett stayed. I love the Syd Barrett stuff. And this is CMLE Play, their second single and a classic song. So yeah, there goes the singles. And now let's move on to the LPs I've picked up for this month. So as you can see, there is a huge empty space in that corner there, because there has been, again, just acres of new records into my collection this month, enough to fill out all that empty space. And just to save some time, I've took them all out of this shelf and they're on here, and by the end you'll see just how much records I've got this month. It's just been another superb month for record collecting. So to start off with, I'm going to show the 2 Zeppelins that I forgot to show last time. Here is of course a copy of Led Zeppelin Untitled, or Led Zeppelin 4 if you want to be a smart ass. But there we go, we've got a plum pressing of it now, and this literally cost me £5. Not for this whole record. The sleeve is an old sleeve that didn't have a record, which I substituted out just a copy of the record I got, like the vinyl itself. But the vinyl, it's got a little kind of like crack, which I'll show in a second. It's got a little crack in like the corner, but it doesn't affect playback at all really. I mean, this plays, I'd say like good plus around there. But it's nice to have this excellent sleeve and put the plum pressing inside. It looks beautiful. And finally, that means I've got a plum pressing of every Zeppelin album that could, you know, physically have a plum pressing. And then the other one I forgot to show, don't know how I forgot to show this one. I picked up a copy of Physical Graffiti. This is in marvellous shape. I'll quickly cut to just a shot of the label, as I usually do. But this is, you know, one of the greatest Led Zeppelin albums. It's probably, I'd say, my second favourite, maybe my third favourite. Zeppelin 3 has always been my favourite, then Zeppelin 2, then I think this. Side 1 and 2, I mean, In My Time of Dying is one of the greatest songs ever written. Kashmir's on this, of course. You've also got Houses of the Holy on this album. Side 3 and 4, you know, they're not, you know, absolute prime Led Zeppelin, but those first 2 sides are, wow, they are excellent. So yeah, Physical Graffiti in the collection, and just a fun cover as well, isn't it? How it pulls out like this and stuff, and you've got the records inside. Classic album, Physical Graffiti. So next up, I've got a copy of Atomic Roosters Made in England. This is from the BBC Gramophone Library. The BBC did an auction recently where they sold off some of their private collection of original music, and a lot of that came in the form of vinyl. And I picked this up for 40 quid. It's awesome to have one of these. It's kind of like history, you know. This would have been sent out to radio stations and stuff like that to play on the radio. But more importantly, it's an Atomic Rooster record that I didn't have. And I love Atomic Rooster. This is actually the first album, I do believe, with Chris Farlow. coming in to do lead vocals, and you can definitely tell he had a big part in the actual music on this album as well, because this is Atomic Rooster taking a step away from the dark and kind of metal-y aspects of what we saw on Death Walks Behind You, and coming to more of a funky, you know, orchestral, you know, saxophones and stuff like this on this album, which in my opinion isn't bad at all. I really like this album. You know, it's fun, all across fun, and Chris Farlow's vocals are great as well. But yeah, made in England, one of the more less known Atomic Rooster records. This isn't what the original cover looked like. This is what the gramophone library itself put it in, like this white sleeve, because I do believe the original sleeve was denim. But I'll take a few shots of this BBC gramophone sticker and stuff like that. It's really cool. It's a piece of history in my collection, you know. So yeah, Atomic Rooster, made in England. Next up, picked up a copy of Dry Water by Southpaw, or is it the other way around? I always forget. This is the only album by this band. I'm pretty sure the band name is Dry Water. And if you watch Noble Records, you'll understand why I've got this record. It is actually brilliant. The first song on this album is called Winter Ground, I think. Wow, that is a stellar song, man. And it was all the proof I needed to know that I would need this record in my collection. This is a reissue. The originals of this obviously are upwards of £1,000, $1,000, I guess, around that, maybe even a bit more. But I found this great reissue from Germany, which came out, I think, 10 years ago, thereabouts. And this was like a tenner I paid for this. More close to 20 after being imported from Germany. But absolutely classic album, this. Anyone's never heard of Dry Water Southpaw, just look it up on YouTube. It's all over YouTube and stuff. Noble Records himself, Dylan, is doing a reissue of it soon. And I think he's borrowing from the original analog tapes as well. So that is definitely one to look out for. But yeah, Dry Water Southpaw. Next up, picked up a copy of the MC5. Needed this in my collection for a long time. This is near enough impossible to get an original of, especially here in the UK. I think the original UK pressings of this go for about 500 quid, you know, and there's very far and few in between. You know, you'll see maybe 2 or 3 of them up every year. But rest in peace, Wayne Kramer, who passed away. One of the absolutely, you know, guitar gods. Absolutely sensational. And he opens this album as well, singing lead on Ramblin' Rose, a classic proto-punk album, MC5. Again, if you've never heard MC5, it really is essential listening. Kick out the jams, mother truckers. So next up, I got this nice audiophile pressing of Lou Reed's Transformer. I was thinking about getting an original of this, but, you know, I'm not a absolute nut on getting, you know, originals. If there's like a nice analog, all analog pressing reissue one, you know, like 180 gram and stuff like that, I will pick it up over an original every day of the week. Just because, you know you're getting a mint product, and you know you're getting quality that, you know, rivals, if not better, is the original pressing. So, you know, this is, the company who made this is Speakers Corner, or Corner Speakers, and this is just made from the original analog master tapes, mastered in full analog, and it sounds beautiful. I mean, what else can you say? This is just a sensational sounding album, one of the best sounding albums in my collection. And you know, this is a classic album. Lou Reed, fresh out of the Velvet Underground, making songs like Walk on the Wild Side, Perfect Day, Vicious, and my personal favourite on this album is Satellite of Love. Classic album all the way through. Lou Reed's Transformer. Staying on that glam, Bowie produced Transformer, but Bowie made Ziggy Stardust. I literally mentioned that in my last record haul that I was getting this record, and it's now here, and there it is. This is an original. It's not a Dynaflex copy. I try and stay clear, even though I know the Dynaflex copies do sound good still. I just don't really want, you know, the most flimsy vinyl in my collection. Just, you know, I have that fear that one day I'll take it out, slide it out of there, and then the record will literally crack or something. But yeah, Ziggy Stardust. I don't even need to say anything about Ziggy Stardust, do I really? I mean, it's not an album that needs to be explained. It's Ziggy Stardust. It's one of the greatest albums of all time. Next up, got some Paul Williams recently in the collection. These are his 2 albums, Life Goes On and An Old-Fashioned Love Song. Very cheap to find Paul Williams, but he's, you know, one of these composers and songwriters for a generation, really. He did everything Muppets-wise. He did, you know, the Rainbow Connection. He did the soundtracks for, you know, like A Muppet's Christmas Carol and all the Muppet movies and stuff like that. But outside of that, he still is one of the best songwriters of all time. You know, the songs on this album, Old Fashioned Love Song, I've actually covered myself before in one of my old albums. But Waking Up Alone and stuff like that, just stellar songwriting all the way through. Beautiful soft rock. And I mean, you can find these for a couple of quid. I paid a £5 for Life Goes On, and I paid, I think, maybe 10 for just An Old-Fashioned Love Song. You know, pick up some Paul Williams for your collection. It's cheap. I don't know, I guess they made millions of those, but it's rare to find them around charity shops and stuff like that. But Paul Williams, man, absolute classic. Phantom of the Paradise, wow. Picked up some Pink Floyd. I'm going to do these in order because they're actually the other way around here. I picked up a nice pair. This has Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Obscured by Cloud. Saucer Full of Secrets. The first 2 albums are on this. It's on the Harvest label. It's got these. It's got like the inner sleeves of each album on either side. But again, Syd Barrett stuff. Love Syd Barrett. Piper at the Gates of Dawn is probably my top 5 favourite Pink Floyd albums. Stuff like Matilda Mother, Interstellar Overdrive, obviously. Lucifer Sam as well. Classic stuff. I've got a bike. You can ride it if you like. It's got a basket bell that rings and things to make it look good. I'd give it to you if I could, but I borrowed it. And then the other side is the other record is, of course, Saucer Full of Secrets, Corporal Clegg, first album with David Gilmour. Classic stuff again. Not as good as Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I wouldn't ever really find myself listening to Saucer Full of Secrets over Piper at the Gates of Dawn. But I mean, this is just a good little 2-pack to have in the collection of the first 2 albums. And they're both, you know, original cuttings from the original Columbia pressings just on Harvest. So yeah. Next up, we've got Adam Hart Mother, which I went to my local city recently and stayed overnight in a travel lodge. And when you're going for a little day away, you know, you need to pick up some stuff. So I just went to HMV, picked up these, you know, 2016 remasters. They're not the best sounding stuff in the world, but they just kind of fill the gap before I can get an original copy. And the best thing about getting these repressings is that they don't really lose any value. They're always going to sell for about 20 quid. So I mean, it's not like you get it in the price of this is going to go massively up or down. These are always 2 for 40, 3 for 55 at HMV. So just taking them out of the wrapper, I can still get pretty much 20 quid for these, you know, every day, any month, any time. So yeah, I'm Hart Mother. A lot of people love that album. I'm not too keen on it personally. I think Echoes is just miles above the, in like a 20+ minute long song category, than Adam Hart Mother Suite is. But you could definitely tell that by that album they were starting to definitely turn into what would come later on, much like what comes on Metal, which is my personal favourite Pink Floyd album. This is the definition of what I listen to after I've had a bong or a spliff. This is just beautiful all the way through. One of these days, Fearless, Sand Troopers, and then Echoes on side 2. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful song. And it doesn't feel 20 minutes at all. It feels maybe 10, because it's just so great. And you know, everyone says time flies by when you're having fun. Well, when you listen to Echoes, time definitely flies by. So yeah, Metal. And then finally, another one, Obscured by Clouds. Again, a bit of a underrated album, this. It does have that kind of, especially on certain songs, it has that more acoustic kind of feeling that is present on songs like Fearless, on Metal. But yeah, not a Pink Floyd album I've listened to a lot, to be perfectly honest. I think this is the one where everyone says they haven't listened to it that much. But I think it's still a good album. It's kind of that, it's a film soundtrack, much like More. And it closes that gap just before Dark Side of the Moon, which is probably one of the greatest albums, if not the greatest albums of all time. So next up, we've got a reissue of the 13th Floor Elevators. This is where psychedelia started, in my opinion, with this album. And I want to get an electric jug myself. Don't know, I'm pretty sure you can make them at home by just like putting magnets or some shit in a jug. I don't know how he did it, but yeah, 13th Floor Elevators, You're Gonna Miss Me, stuff like that. I'm flying through these records, so I can't say much about them. I've kind of forgotten, looking at what's next on the list. But yeah, 13th Floor Elevators. I should do a review on this pressing. It's obviously on that beautiful vinyl, the green with kind of purple hue around the edges. Beautiful. Fire Engine, classic song on there as well, of course. Then picked up some Hendrix. This is just a reissue of Axis Board of Love. Really hard to get original pressings of Hendrix here in the UK. Especially Electric Ladyland. Here, the cover of Electric Ladyland was a tiny bit more explicit than the US counterpart. But this was on sale for, I think, 15 quid at HMV. So it was a no-brainer. Picked it up. Absolutely stunning album. EXP starts the album, which is just funny humour from all three members of The Experience. Spanish Castle Magic, Little Wings on this. You know, it's just packed with greats, this album. You know, on side 2, you've got Me Floating, you know, Boulder's Love, of course, the title track. Absolutely stunning way to end that album. So we're coming to nearly to the last couple of records. I picked up a copy of Ram, Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. This is an original on the dark green Apple label. And classic, what else can I say about it? The best Paul McCartney album, in my opinion. The entire, you know, Monkberry, Moon Delight, Too Many People, Uncle Albert, Free Legs. You know, a classic album. Backseat of My Car ends that album as well. Then just the one Rolling Stones pick up for this month is Between the Buttons. Bit of an underrated Rolling Stones album, this. One after Aftermath and the one before Satanic Majesty, so it's kind of again in the middle of two great albums, like I was saying about Obscured by Clouds before, being after Metal and before Dark Side. This is very much a similar story, but it's still got some great songs on there. My favourite is My Obsession on this album. I think that's an awesome song. Charlie Watts on the drums, the class drum beat, drum break, I guess. That's an original mono. And then I do believe finally, nope, there's still some other stuff, but I've picked up some Hollies. picked up Stay with the Hollies, their debut album. Found this in a charity shop for, I think it was £3, and it's a Hollies album. I don't have it's their debut album, and it's a bit of a rarer first pressing of this. This doesn't have sold in the UK. I think I think even the ones we've sold in the UK are classed as first pressings for this album, because there's very few of the monos that released without the sold in the UK. So this is like a true first pressing of this album. It's a great debut album from the Hollies. They've got a really fast and upbeat version of Mr. Moonlight on here. And obviously Stay is the best track on the album by a country mile. Then I picked up the Hollies' third album for, I think, a tenner. This is just simply titled Hollies. But this is the Hollies becoming a bit more mature with their song making at this point. We've got a really great cover of Very Last Day on there, but also So Lonely, which is a Graham Nash pen number, and Alan Clark, of course. Classic stuff. And Mikey's Monkey ends out the album, which is a brilliant, you know, rocker as well. And then, second to last for the Hollies, the other one I barely will show, but finally I've got a copy of Evolution in stereo. This is the Hollies at their absolute peak, you know, for certain, because Evolution and Butterfly are just three of the best pop albums ever made, in my opinion. And I mean, this album is absolutely superb. We've got When the Heartbreak Begins starting off the song, But Water on the Brain, Have You Ever Loved Somebody, you know, wow, just absolutely stunning. You know, Rain on the Window, The Games We Play, When Lights Turned On, The Old Toffee Shop. It's not a single bad track on this album at all. There isn't even a single mediocre track on this album. That album is nothing but win, in my opinion. And then the final Hollies is, my dad got me this Hollies Greatest for a couple of £. It's the only Hollies album to get #1. It's got all their original singles and in stereo and stuff like that on there. Picked up a bit of Cliff for £1. Everyone loves a bit of Cliff. And then, nope, there's still 2 left. The penultimate record of this record haul today is, in fact, a copy of the Village Green Preservation Society by the Kinks. Classic album. Again, decided to get the reissue of this because they really do make solid reissues of the Kinks albums, in my opinion. And also, they are incredibly expensive to find the originals of these, because they didn't sell well, unfortunately, the Kinks. They created some of their best albums at the wrong time, really. That no one was interested in the Kinks after 1966. They were really just a British invasion band and then disappeared. But I mean, all of their albums after Face to Face are still incredible, and this is just a grand example of it. You've got the Village Green Preservation Society on here. Picture Book, which has been plagiarised by shit tons of bands, Green Day being the most, the one that comes to mind when you think of it. Sitting by the Riverside, Johnny Thunder, you know, Do You Remember Walter on side 1, Animal Farm, Phenomenal Cat, Wicked Annabella, just classic British album. You know, you can't emphasise the Britishness enough with these Kinks albums from the late 60s. And talking about British, we end off today with a original mono of the Small Faces. There's Steve Marriott there, of course. Classic album, this. What you gonna do about it? Felt like I needed this in the collection. I like the Small Faces. This and their second album, the only ones that was released in the UK, because I'm pretty sure Itchy-Coo Park was only released in the US for some reason. I guess they kind of went the way of like Eric Burdon did and went out to San Fran and kind of never looked back after that and stuff like that. So yeah, there is my vinyl haul for February in some of early March, I guess. Thank you for watching, everyone. It's been your boy, a Gromit, and I will see you in the next one.